So today I'm going to talk about Python strings. For that, I'm going to go into the Python interpreter to show you some of the snippets of code. A string is basically text, and you can put it in a variable, for example, this one, name equals John Doe. That's a string. It's enclosed in double quotes. You can also have, for example, a string enclosed in single quotes. So for example, A equals John Doe, right? They are the same string. And also strings can be enclosed in 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes. So for example, a longer string can start with 3 double quotes, then a long paragraph, and then end in 3 double quotes. Or you can have it in another variable, let's call it J, with 3 single quotes, the long text, and then close 3 single quotes. So far we have the variable name, which has John Doe, the variable A, which has John Doe, the variable longer, which has that paragraph, and the variable J, which has the same paragraph. As you can see, these are different ways of creating a string. Now, a string is an array. It's an array of characters. So for example, here, name has the value John Doe, right? But it really has the characters J, O, H, N, space, D, O, E. Those are the characters that it has. So I can use operations that I use in array-like structures in Python, like lists, for example. I can say, for example, name, and then have the first letter, which is index 0, and that's going to be the letter J. I can also have name and have the 4th character. Remember, this is an index 0, so index 4 is going to be the 5th character, and I get the space. Okay, why? Well, because there's spaces are characters too. And in some places, characters can be also slightly interesting. So for example, in this text, J, that's the text, okay? Well, here we have characters T, H, E, O, D, O, R, space, S, and so on and so forth. Now here's another character, right? The apostrophe. Here's another character, the period. So all these characters. Now, between the period and political cartoonist, yada, yada, yada. Now, right here, I'm starting a new paragraph. So between filmmaker and he, there's not only a period here, but there's also, when I hit enter, that is an actual character, okay? And you can see it when I print it here. So when I type longer and it printed the string here, you see that after filmmaker, there's a period, and then there's a slash and an N. This slash N is called an escape character. Escape character is a class of characters, and this escape character is the new line. So you usually take the slash N as one character, okay? So let's look at it. This is in position, if I start from here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., etc. If I count them all and I want to print this, it'll print a new line. To make it easier, I don't want to count all these characters up to here, so I'm going to create a shorter string, right? So M equals my name is Inigo Montoya. For example, that's another character, right? And if I type M sub 9, that's the S for is, and then M sub 11 is the I for Inigo here. What's in between 9 and 11? M sub 10, which is the new line character, because I hit enter when I was typing this, right? So there are some special characters that you can't see, but they're still there. If it's displayed in a certain way, chances are there's a character that makes it display that way, even though you might not see it. I can create a string with a new line character. For example, I can say, I'm going to call it T, and I'm going to say this is new line right. And if I print t, I'm going to see the new line character. However, if I use the print command, and I say print t, I'm going to see the two lines. This is the new line, which I don't see, and then right. So this new line character here is visible when you just print, when you just evaluate the variable, but it's not visible when you print. It's a formatting character. Now, another thing that it's important is that strings don't necessarily need to go into a variable. You can do these exact same things with a given with any string. So for example, this is right. That's a string, is not the variable. And then I can say, for example, in this variable sub, I don't know, 9. And that's going to return the I, which is in the 9th place. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That I, the I of right, right? So I don't really need a variable to do stuff on strings. Variables are just convenient because you can refer to a string repeatedly. Now, because it's an array, I can loop through its letters. I can say something like for character in T, for example. T, remember T is this string. For a character in T, print that character. And that prints this space is, and then the new line character, right? So print will print one character in per line, basically. Now, because they're an array of characters, I can do everything that I do with my lists or my array-like things in Python, right? So for example, I can say story is equal to once upon a time in a land far away. That is my string, and I put it in a variable called story. And I can do something like this. When it's going to be equal to story 16. This will basically look at all the characters up to the 16th character and put it in when. So if I print when, if I evaluate when, it'll say once upon a time. I can have other dicing of lists saying story 18 colon, right? So this goes from index 18 all the way to the end. So if I evaluate where, it's going to say in a land far away. And then I can have any other slices in between. So geography, for example, is going to be story 18 to 27. And if I evaluate geo, I will say in a land, right? And so on and so forth. You can do the exact same things that you would do in a regular list. You can also get the length of the list by doing len story, and that tells you how many characters there are, right? You can also check whether words are in this list of characters, right? In this string, saying, for example, is the word time in story? And the answer is true. So you can say something like if time in story, then print O time, right? And that will actually print O time because this condition is true. I can also see if things are not in there. I can say Cinderella not in story. So it's going to look for the word or for the character Cinderella, and if they're not in the story, it's going to be true. If they're in the story, this is going to be false. Because Cinderella is not in my story variable, this will evaluate to true. But if I look for time not in story, for example, that will evaluate to false because time is actually in the story. Now, they don't have to be words, right? They can be letters or portion of words. So for example, I can say way in story, and that's going to be true because there's the three letters way, right? So I can check for whether characters are in the string. Now, because these are objects, you can also have them, you can perform actions on them. So far, we've been checking and slicing and dicing the string, but we can also perform actions. So for example, if I say story.upper, that's going to return a string that is the whole story, the whole string in uppercase. I can say, for example, up story is going to be story.upper, right? So if I say up story, I'll get the uppercase. Now I can say up story dot lower, and that's going to go all lowercase. There's many other case, not many other, but there's a few other case switching statements that you can try. I can also say, for example, I can also say something like story.title, and that actually capitalizes the first letter of each word, right? Now, I can also check in which position some string is with respect to the story or with respect to any string. So for example, I have my story. I'm just going to put it here for reference, and I'm going to work on that. And I can say, for example, story.find time. And this will return what position, what index of the story starts the word time. And it will tell me 12, right? And I can prove it. Story, and if I print anything from index 12 on, I'm going to print basically everything from time on, right? Because I find the word time or any character, and it'll tell me where it is, the first occurrence of that character. I can also check whether the string begins or ends with a certain word. So for example, I can check story starts with once, and it says true. However, this is important to notice. If I say story starts with the word once like that, it's going to be false because the lowercase o and the capital O are different strings. They're different characters. They're different at all. Now, one more thing that I can do is I can check whether a specific string ends with something. So I can say story.ends with away. And that's going to be true because story says once upon a time in land far away. Does story ends with the letter Y? Yes, right? So this don't need to be word specifically, okay? Now, one last thing is strings can become arrays of things. So for example, I will have a string groceries that's going to have bananas, apples, tomatoes, and milk. All right. Now these are different groceries, and I want to know what's the third grocery that I got. Okay. Well, I would have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, you know, the third grocery and item, and that's tomatoes, right? How do I extract this from there? Because you can see that this string is neatly divided. You can clearly see where the groceries end and begin. And they actually begin and end in comma. And that is really interesting. We call this comma a delimiter. It delimits items. So strings have a method that if you have a delimiter in a string, that if you have a delimiter, you can actually split the string and convert it into a list of items. You can say groceries split comma. What you're going to do here is every time you see a comma, you're going to split the string. And all the items in between are going to go into a list. So if I say split in comma, then I will get a list denoted by the square braces. And it's going to be bananas, apples, tomatoes, and milk. So for example, GL for grocery list is going to be groceries dot split in comma. And then GL, for example, the third grocery item, it'll be GL sub 3, and it's going to be milk. That's index 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3, right? GL, the third item, tomatoes. And I can get each individual item. Now, initially, we had this variable longer that has a lot of text here, right? Well, I can get all the words from here in a list like this. I can say words are longer dot split, and then the words are divided not in commas, but they're divided in spaces. So I can do that. And then I can say words, and that's each word in its own slot, in its own list. Split will actually turn a string and return a list. And this is really important because so far most of these methods that the methods that string has, right? So far they return other strings or booleans, true, false, right? Or a number, like the find method. Well, split returns a list. Okay, split returns a list of strings. Every element is a string, and they're separated by whatever this. There would be strings that in the original string were separated by this delimiter character. So that's a quick introduction to strings. There's a lot more to strings than this. I urge you to go and find out about them.